Oh, hey there. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, sorry about the clapping. I get excited. If you're new here, I truly believe you're meant to be here. So hit that subscribe. Welcome to my YouTube. I'm Trihrdrgrl, also known as Dana, my real name. I'm usually doing things about triathlon and posting my triathlon journey and all of my Ironman training stuff. And yeah, but I read some books this year, or by this year, I mean 2025. It's the new year now. I'm a little late on doing this kind of what I read in 2025 book recap, but I wanted to do a little bit of bookish stuff with you and tell you about the books I read. If that's something you're interested in, stick around. We're going to talk about these books here that I read in 2025. When I was younger, I knew my library card number by heart. Like, I went to the library, I checked out books often and commonly, and I knew my librarians. In high school, my librarian was like my safe place. And I just liked to read, mostly fiction then, but it was something I actually enjoyed doing. I was never the one where, my parents told me I had to turn the TV off at night. It was always like, turn your light off, stop reading type thing. I enjoyed reading. No one had to make me do it or anything like that. But as life went on, college, I spent a lot of time just drinking a little too much. And then things became more important. And recently, as of last year, I was like, actually a couple years ago, I did the 75 hard challenge where you had to read 10 pages a day within that challenge. That's for another story and another time. If you're interested in hearing that, I can tell you about 75 hard. Like I said, another story, another time. But I read a little bit then. I think the biggest thing with me is that my memory really, really sucks. Like, I see these people telling these stories about their childhood and their teen years and their, all of that. And the common ground that I see with them is that they're readers and they're writers. And people who write things and read things tend to have a better memory. That might not be scientifically based, but it's something I've observed. So I want to make sure that my memory sticks around because I've had a lot of great memories in my life and I don't want them to go away. So one of those things I'm going to do is read more. And this year I'm definitely getting back on the writing train, whether it be journaling, doing short form blogs or such online again. But the thing with reading is that I've always had hard time retelling the story that I just read. I'm okay with, like, my hubby talks about how, like, he'll read a couple sentences and has to go back. That's very ADHD, ADD type coded there. Me, like, I can absorb it in the moment, but then, a year from now, so some of these books I read a year ago, I'm going to have to, like, remember about reading about them because I don't remember it then. And so one of my things about doing like a bookish type videos and vlogs is to help my memory and help remember those. And if I can talk that back through you, something about the repetition of telling the story will help with that memory of mine. So yeah, let's get to it. Let's talk about the books I read in 2025. I'm already a couple books into 2026. So what I'm going to do is do like a monthly one like this. My goal is to read at least 26 books in the year, which I think I will hit this year. I didn't start reading last year until I think I took a book on my cruise in February, but like barely read it on the plane and stuff. So it wasn't until like March that I was consistently reading, and I got 15 books in. So I'm pretty sure I can get the 26 in this year. And that's just to go along with the theme of 2026. So let's talk about them. I'm going to separate them based on nonfiction and fiction. And then, we'll go from there. All right, I separated them in my nonfiction and fiction. The fiction looks higher only because my fiction books were like a little bit bigger than my nonfiction books this year. But I did read 8 nonfiction, 7 fiction. Let's talk about the nonfiction ones first. I'm just going to go by the way I stack them. These aren't the order I read them, but then in the end, I'm going to tell you my ranking on them. I'm going to do my top 3 nonfiction and my top 3 fiction on the year. So let's talk about them. We got I'm Glad My Mom Died. I am sorry if I mispronounce anybody's names. Jeanette McCurdy of Shirley and Sam and Cat. Those were like Nickelodeon, right? Anyways, childhood star. This is kind of her story of her life. And the title, I picked up the title right away because it's one of those things, also for another video, that I've talked about before in the past, is like how I've mourned my mom even though she's alive. But she had a rough childhood. All right, I'm going to try to spend like less than 30 seconds on each book, but it might not always be the case. Jeanette had a rough childhood. Her story was awesome. It was well written. The ending sent me. Yeah, highly recommend. Swim, Bike, Bonk. There's that. This is by Will McGow, and this is a story of him doing his first Ironman distance Ironman in Arizona. So if you're thinking of doing, Ironman in Arizona is gone now, so you can't think of doing it anymore. But anyways, I think it was Arizona. He's a writer. He was already like sort of an athlete, but it is pretty much like from zero triathlon to triathlon. So that's kind of fun, kind of hearing his different perspectives on turning into a triathlete and doing his first Ironman. Everything happens for a reason. This literally, Mira Kirschenbaum, author of the National Too Good to Leave, Too Bad to Stay. This is Chicken Soup for the Mother. Oh, that was someone that reviewed it. Anyways, this was okay. It's not highly rated by me. It has a lot of stories of why things happen to people for a reason. This one made me think about like how we can all write a self-help book if we wanted to, because all that self-help book and motivational books are people taking experience throughout life and telling you they did, or they can, or the way that they did do it. So it was okay. This one's called Warrior, My Path to Being Brave by Lisa. Also, sorry if I mispronounce it. Guerrero. I can't do the R's. Anyways, she is actually a television, like she's been on a bunch of different television shows. She was on the Man Show at one time, sort of where she got her start. But the reason I mentioned that one is because this is a very good woman empowerment book, and how she got through pretty much the patriarchy to become her own self, and like she said, her path to being brave and standing up for herself as a woman. Loved this. Didn't know who she was before I read this story, so that's it's a really cool to read a story from that perspective about someone. I've found that I used to really love these self-helpy / motivational books like The Chicken Soup for the Soul and all of that. But again, they seem to be super repetitive. So on that note, the next one here is Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. Lots of good stories in here. I know the author and have read some problematic things about the author, but I didn't know that before I read this book. It only came up on my feed. Before that, that's another story. We're reviewing books here. This one is again another like, okay, it's got some good motivation in it. It's got some good stories in it. But I think that I'm like heading out of the motivational nonfiction, and I want to get more into like teach me about history and such nonfiction over the motivation and like telling this stories over and over again, if that makes sense. And since, that makes sense, this is a good one to be under there. Chasing the Bright Side. You guys, this is the founder of CEO Headbands of Hope. For every headband soul, the headband is giving to a child with cancer. Oh, I do remember now. This person has a great story. Didn't know her story before it, but her story is awesome in this one. So this one, even though it is one of those like motivational self-helpy types, I absolutely loved her story. She has a great story. I started following her, I think, on socials. She has a crazy story about her family and how her family was intertwined with some controversy. So this one, out of all the self-helpy ones I read this year, would probably be my highest rated. It's not in my top 3 nonfiction, but it's my highest rated in my self-helpy ones, for sure. Up next, The Third Gilmore Girl. I am a huge Gilmore Girls fan. I'm a huge Emily Gilmore's Girl fan. I always say that if my parents were rich or had money or came from money, Emily and Richard, and my dad's name was Richard, their similarities were crazy to me. Anyways, I love Gilmore Girls. Her story is awesome. How she got started in theater, her dance life, all of that. Like, read this, especially if you're a Gilmore Girls fan, or even if you're not. Her story is just amazing. So yes. And then last but not least, on the nonfiction part, was Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. I actually picked this up a couple years ago now, from Barnes & Noble, or whenever it first came out. Let's see when she said she was copyrighted. No, that's someone else. 2021, right around there, probably 22 area. I picked this up right when it came out, and it kind of sat on my shelf because it just was one of those, one, I wasn't reading as much then, and two, like, I knew it was going to take some getting into because Brene Brown does. I do like Brene Brown as an author. This one is like, it's literally mapping meaningful connection in the language of the human experience. So she takes all of your kind of, feelings, connection words, and like defines them in a lot of ways, in different ways. So also self-helpy, but not in the sense of frou-frou motivation. I liked it, but it did take me a little bit to get through it, for the sense of it's a lot of study stuff, definitions of words. It isn't a story in a sense. So something to know about that one. So my top 3, should I do my top? No, let's get into the fiction, and then we'll do the top 3 fiction and nonfiction after. All right, let's get into what I read fiction-wise this year. I am going to try my best to remember, because like I said, some of the ones that I read at the beginning of the year, I am not going to remember so much. But first up, just based on the stacking I did by moving my books around and sorting, Jodi Picoult, I'm sorry if I'm saying names wrong, again, by any other name. I picked this up because of the author's name. I've seen her name before. Also, she's been very active on social media with activism, and I didn't realize a lot her fiction books were about activism and standing up for marginalized, so on and so forth. So I absolutely love this. It is actually the story of, it's a crossover story between someone nowadays trying to become a writer and Shakespeare's time, and who actually wrote Shakespeare, and whether it was all Shakespeare's writing or was there someone else involved. So that's what I'll say about this. Loved it, would read it again. Will go on the read again list once I, start reading some other things. So this one is Isola Allegra Goodman. Picked this up because it was on the Reese's Book Club. I think it was on sale at one point. This one, I remember the story. Oh yeah, deserted island, crazy history. I picked up a lot this year, books that were like historical fiction, but like had some resemblance of fiction in them, meaning they were based on something or something along those lines. So this is the story of a girl who gets a fortune inherited to her, but her family kind of takes it from her and she gets offshored. I struggled with caring about the characters in this, and I'm no expert in book reviews, but that's just my opinion. That's like all I remember about this one. It was a good story. like kind of a woman power story, but not like super strong out there. And yeah, like I said, I just struggled with some of the characters and caring whether or not I cared about them. So this one was, I didn't get through quick. It wasn't one of those, oh my God, I want to know what happens next, because I didn't care, if you get my gist. Excuse me. Next up, Like Mother, a novel by Susan Rieger. Yes. I think this one's high on my list. I don't remember, but it might be top 3. I picked this up because the Like Mother, and it's talking about relationships between mothers, grandmothers. Grandmother has a crazy history. Mom is a mom that didn't really want to be a mom. Granddaughter writes about that in a book. So there's a lot of drama there, and but mom is super liked by everyone, but the granddaughter or daughter writes about how, like, some negative things about her per se. I would pick this one up. That's probably not the best describer. Like I said, I'm working on my memory, but I would pick this one up again and read it again. I like that one a lot. The Things We Leave Unfinished, Rebecca Yarros. When I first started reading, guys, this was my first, I think this was my first or second book I read this year. And I read in the bathtub, and I accidentally dropped the damn thing in the bathtub. When I first started picking up reading again, like I love romantic comedies, rom-coms, and, like things that like, your Christmas Hallmark movies and stuff. That's like some of my favorite stuff. So I wanted something that was similar to that, and this is exactly that. It's a rom-com. It has a surprise ending. There's a relationship building throughout the whole thing. It's a story of the past intertwined with the current times, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. I guess this author, like, I didn't know at the time, has written like a popular series right now, but her popular series she's written right now isn't like my style. I'm going to try. But if you can recommend like things that are her other style, it's like a fantasy. I don't know the best words for it, but those aren't usually mine. Like, I can't usually get into them. That's usually not my style. So this wasn't bad. I enjoyed it. It was very rom-com-y. I got through it pretty quick for it being a 400-page book, and I dropped it in the bathtub. Up next, the Dictionary of Lost Words. This is one of those books that has that fictional history but nonfiction in it. Like, they even have some references in the back, and it's about writing the dictionary, like how they started the Oxford Dictionary, and a young woman's journey of being a part of that, and definitely woman empowerment type book, definitely history. Great story. I like this one a lot. Next up, I read Wicked. I read Wicked because the movie was coming back out again. I read this in college. This was my only reread this year, but I didn't remember it. And I guess I should for next time, and I think I will for next time. I did not enjoy this at all. Out of all the fiction books I read this year, this is very low on my list. And I love the musical. The musical is one of my favorite things. If you see, I have Wicked stuff. I even put a Wicked title above my head. But it's very different than the musical. It is a dark and grim story. But just like that one book I read, I did not care about any of the characters. In the musical, like, I can't, pick a favorite character. I care so much about those characters. But like in the book, like even Elphaba like sucks. And like no one really, I don't know. There's so much empowerment in the musical, and like everybody kind of cares about themselves in this book. So, the best part of it is the undertones and, the commentary on politics and racism, and that's a good basis in the story. But like I said, I could care less about the characters and what happened to them, like even Elphaba in this story. So just a heads up. if you're going to read Wicked the book, it took me a while. I almost DNF'd this, as you book people would say, because I couldn't care. But I got through the whole thing. Wicked. All right, last but not least, I read The Hunting Wives. I saw this on a table when I was at the bookstore, and hubby and I had watched a series together this year. And so if you've watched the series, this story is a little bit different, for sure, but it's similar in the sense of it is, I guess the best way I could put it is like a smut read, but like smut read used to be like not so negative. I don't say that in a like negative way. Like I don't mind. This is a beach read, maybe, I guess is another way of putting it. Like I like reading these. You can get through them quick. You want to know what happens. There's twists and turns. You have at least one character you care about. Enjoyed this. Look forward to watching the next season of this series. It's also not my type of like series. Like I don't usually watch that type of stuff, but I was so entwined in it, and the actresses in are great. So I will watch the next season. Like I got through the series riding my bike. I had to do a couple long rides in a row indoors, and I just watched this. I watched the series while I was biking and got through it pretty quick. Also got through this book really quick. One, I had already watched the series, so I was relating to the characters through that. But you will find different favorites in this, and there's some surprise endings that are different than the surprise endings in the series. So that's all I'm going to say about it in case you want to read it. I'd never want to give away spoilers. Let's do our top 3 of each and kind of wrap this up. I don't know if I can put these in order per se, but maybe I can. I don't know. You'll probably hear it from the way I described them already, and that which ones were my favorite. My top 3 fiction. This was probably my favorite. Jodi Picoult's By Any Other Name. Loved it. Loved the story behind it. Would love to read more into Shakespeare not being Shakespeare, because I was a theater major in college and it never even crossed. So second would have been Like Mother. This was fantastic. Love the story. And third, The Dictionary of Lost Words. I told you the ones that I wouldn't read again. These are the top 3 that I would read again for sure. When it comes to nonfiction, obviously Kelly Bishop's story was just amazing. I could hear her voice throughout this whole thing. Yes, because I know her so well from Gilmore Girls, but also she's just very distinct in the way that she speaks and her tones. That I could hear it in this, so it was awesome. Second up, nonfiction. I'm Glad My Mom Died. Fantastic book. Crappy story, obviously, but I heard they're turning it into a TV show. No, a movie. I think it would be better as a movie, but I think they're turning it into a TV show. Jen Aniston might have jumped on for the mom. I'm not certain, but look it up if you're interested. And then Lisa's story, also amazing. Check these 3 out. I would definitely probably read them again. They're people's stories, so it would have to be a while till I read them again. But I realized when it comes to nonfiction, like I said, I'm going to try to jump into some historical nonfiction and some educational nonfiction coming up here. But the motivational frou-frou storybooks don't get me anymore. I like people's story, like biographies. And like I said, we're going to jump into some educational ones. So what do you think? Should I keep doing like book reviews-ish? They're not like, I'm not educated in how, that's just my opinion. So just know that I'm not educated in how to review books or what's the right way to do it. I'm just sharing my opinion with you. And maybe you saw a book here today that you would read or want to read based on my opinion. And tell me a book that you've read this year or in 2025 or this year. Like I said, I'm on my 3rd book for the year. I just started the 3rd book for the year, I think. Yeah. And that's what I'm going to do. Monthly, I'm going to tell you about the books I read every month. And then at the end of the year, we'll do something like this for the 26 books I read or more. If you enjoyed this video, drop a comment, drop that subscribe. This algorithm kind of likes that, but also I like it. Like, just give me a little bit of love. I love you all. I will check in with you very, very soon.